Okay, go.
How to write a disability memoir. Well, we're going to be talking about that up next. So stay tuned and grab your beverage and whatever you need to do and just buckle up. But we'll be talking about that. And we got some tips on how to write one. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to PWD Allies podcast. My name is Brent Frayne. I'm the host, and today we're going to be talking about how to write a disability memoir. That's right, how to write a disability memoir. There's a lot of tips in order to do that. So, with that being said, I'm joined by my editor producer Neil Matheson. Hello, Neil. How are you?
There, I have my mic on now. I didn't start the show very well. We didn't do the ISO shot, and I forgot to
Oops.
unmute my mic. So anyway, here we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the this episode's kind of a bit selfish because I'm gonna be talking about my own book and my own experience writing my own memoir, and I have to say that the the whole reason for this episode came about because we had Minnie St. Clair. She just made a comment. She says, "Oh, she started talking about my book, and she says you should do an episode about it." And she said you
Yeah.
should do a whole series about it. And I thought, a whole series? I don't know about
Well,
that, but I thought, well, if I'm
for
not gonna
one,
do if I'm not gonna do a whole series, maybe we can do just one episode on it and see if people like it.
if they like it, then we
So
can kind of see where it blossoms from
yeah,
that.
so if people love it, then I can do a whole series. But for now, I thought, well, let's just do one, and I'll do uh,
Volume one.
I'll do 7 tips that really helped me when I was doing my memoir or my disability story. 7 tips that helped me,
Yeah,
and
be
yeah,
interesting.
the other interesting thing too is, I mean, we always talk about sharing our stories on the
Hmm.
podcast here, like sharing lived experience stories, and that's basically what a memoir is, right? It's or an autobiography. You're sharing your story.
Hmm.
So even if people, don't necessarily even want to write a book, but they just want to share their story with some sort of media, they
Hmm.
might get something from this episode too, because we're all about sharing stories, and this is how I came about to share my story, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to tune into the podcast if you miss today's episode. If you're watching now and you got to step away, you can always jump onto the YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe, like, and share, and stay up to date on all the shows. And the podcast version is actually on the channel, so definitely check it out if you don't have time today to sit and watch the episode. And yeah, I mean, share lived experience stories. I mean, that's what it's all about, is either writing a book or just talking about it, and come onto the channel, be a guest, and share your story. I mean, if the media out there, they don't want to share stories about lived experience, situations that people go through on a day-to-day basis with a disability in Canada or around the world. I mean, matter of fact, I mean, there's anywhere around the world people have disabilities, and they disabilities don't go away.
Hmm.
I know government loves the disabilities to go away, but they won't. I mean, in reality, people will get more disabilities as they age.
Yeah, they just
Uh,
get worse, right?
yeah, they do. They
Yeah.
amplify, and I mean, nobody wants more disabilities, but I mean that's just part of human nature, right?
Yeah.
I mean, no fault of their own too. They can acquire more disabilities as they go on in life,
Hmm.
and that's what it's about, is learning from your book that you'll be talking about, the 7 pointers of how to write a disability memoir. And disability stories. I mean, of what people want to share in their life, because, like I was just mentioning, I mean, one of my neighbors was saying, "Well, I mean, I have a story, and I contacted the media, and nobody wants to talk about what I go through on a day-to-day basis, like the struggles that I go through." I said,
Mm-hmm.
maybe because it doesn't have the teeth to that story. Maybe, I don't know. I can't speak for media. I
Yeah.
said, but you can come onto our channel. You can come onto
The
our
thing is that disabilities aren't sexy, right? I mean,
yeah,
they don't have that sex appeal of some other stories. But
yeah.
what I should say before we get going is I haven't even mentioned my book title yet. Some people know what it is, some people don't.
And what is
But it was about 15 years ago now, 15, 16 years ago or so. I wrote a book in at the end of 2009. Daddy Bent Legs, it's called,
mhm,
and it is autobiographical. It's basically a memoir of my experience growing up with cerebral palsy,
mhm.
and I just wanted to write a book that was kind of fun and
Yeah,
showed a more three dimensional side of what having a disability really is like. Because, the stuff that I had seen, or even in movies too, you kind of get this disability porn, or this it's all inspirational all the time, and it's like I of course you want to have some inspirational stuff in there, but I kind of wanted to show like the fun side. Like
yeah,
it's not all like just it's not all bad. It's not all like tears, and it's not all like inspirational all the time. It's a lot more nuanced than that. And I wanted to show the fun. I wanted to show the nuance. I wanted to show the three dimensionalness of having a disability. So I first started writing it back. I would say the first two chapters of my book were written in grade 11 and 12 as kind of an English assignment. I wrote first two chapters, and they didn't really change that much. If you go back, if somebody reads those first two chapters, that's basically the two chapters from my grade 11 and 12 writing assignment. and
nice.
and then from there, I kind of shelved everything until about age 22, and I kind of gave myself a challenge. It was after I had done my first year at university.
Mhm.
I kind of thought, well, that first summer, or that first spring, actually, of finishing up my first year at university, I kind of wanted to give myself a challenge. It's like, can I write something more? Can I write something more about my life? And sometimes you think that writing about yourself is going to be easy. Like
No,
you
that's
think
not.
that it's like, if that's kind of what I thought. I thought, well, if I want to write something, like maybe I should write about something that I know, and it's like, well, who do I know best but myself? And
Mhm.
so you think, well, sure, I'm going to write about myself. I'll be easy. But here's where we're going to start with the 7 tips
Mhm.
on writing your story, and I'm gonna do the first title card here. We're doing live title cards, or live titles, and the first one is, think of yourself as a fictional persona.
Oh,
That's the tip number 1, is think of yourself as a fictional persona, because the thing is that yes, I know myself, but then you have to realize that there's going to be a lot of people that don't know me at all, that don't
mhm.
know me from a hole in the wall. So because of that, you really have to start thinking about yourself as not a real person, but you have to kind of give yourself a more of a fictional persona, and give yourself little character hooks, or characterizations that people can hook into, kind of like distill yourself down into like a comic book character, or like a character in a TV show, or a book, that they can kind of dig their hooks into, like little things that they can hook into, because nobody's going to know me, like I said, from a hole in the wall.
Mhm.
And you kind of got to give people that kind of essence of who you are as a person, in a real quick way. And the only way you can really do that is to kind of more think of yourself as a fictionalized person. Like if somebody didn't know me, how do they best get to know me? Like, how can I exaggerate? That's another thing, is you have to kind of exaggerate parts of your personality so they stand out. And that's going to come to another tip later on. You'll see, but I think that's the first thing, is to kind of, if you think of yourself as a fictional persona, that actually helps, because you have to realize that there isn't anybody, well, other than your parents or your immediate family. Of course, they know who you are, but everybody else that's going to read the book knows nothing about me. Or if you wrote a book, Brent, I mean, not many people would know anything about you either. So you have to find something about yourself, kind of that bare essence of yourself that you can say, this is me in a nutshell, kind of thing, or the Coles Notes version of myself. And you kind of emphasize that part. So that's tip number one.
That's really interesting. How you've described that, because making it's like making yourself like a fictionary character kind of, and kind of blossom from that point on. And like you said, I like how you mentioned, like, kind of hook onto that the almost like the attributes that the person has. They kind of feed off of that, right? And it kind of blossoms from that point on. And I guess I'll blossom into point number two.
Yeah, and you'll see when we get to the point number two, you'll see how it all connects. So I'm going to go to point number two now. Bring up the second title. The second title is Focus on Your Differences, Not Your Similarities. And this is where I kind of wanted to talk about my impetus for writing the book in the first place. Was, like, I talk about how much I just wanted to be like everybody else. I just wanted to be the quote unquote same as everybody else, or normal like everybody else, right? And I think people with disabilities, I think there's a lot of us out there that can identify with that sentiment, right? That we just want to be treated like normal, like everybody else. And certainly that was the case for me growing up. But it's interesting that when I started to share my book out there with people that I trusted, like, and I'll get to this later on the list too. I shared my book out with an instructor, like a university instructor, an English instructor that I really trusted her opinion, and I showed it to her, and I showed it to a couple other people, and they said, I only want to see what's different about you. I don't care about your similarities. like she says, like, if you just talk about how you're the same, she says, same is boring. I don't want to read boring. I don't want to read the same. I don't want to read boring. I want to read how you're different, how your experience is different, because that to me differs from my life. Show me the differences, not the similarities, right? And I thought that was really, really significant. So as much as like you and I and other people are probably have grown up with the idea, like, I just want to be normal, I just want to be the same as everybody, I want to go after the same things. Like, if you're gonna write about it, like, like I said, the same is boring. People want to know about your differences. So really highlight the different differences. So that's point number two. Yeah.
Interesting on that is, people with disabilities, like myself, for me growing up, I wanted to just be accepted just for who I am, and I think there was some points of time in my life where I would just pretend I didn't have a disability. People look at me, well, why are you looking over that way? I'm looking at me straight ahead. I was just looking over that way, and maybe, well, because I just wanted to be accepted, going, oh yeah, like I'm paying attention to what you're saying, but meanwhile I'm actually looking at them, but it was just my eye condition. I had no control of that, so I figured, okay, let's just pretend I'm looking over somewhere else because I wanted to be accepted. And over time, I became to understand, no, it's okay, Brent. It's okay for just to be you. It's okay to be and one of my instructors in college told me it's okay just to be you. Like, yeah, people are going to accept you for you, and if they don't accept you for who you are, well, then they shouldn't be in your life, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I go, oh, okay, that's a good way of looking at it. Let your personality shine, she said. Let it blossom. I always
Yeah.
remember those key lines. Let it shine. Let it blossom. Let it be who you are, not with
Yeah.
what, say, a government wants you to be or who they want you to be. I mean, if you're advocating later in life, you'll probably get into more advocating for change of different things that you have a knack for. She says, and you'll take some tumbles down, you'll stumble, you pick yourself up, and you keep going, and just be the highest potential for yourself that you can be for what you want, and never stand down.
Yeah.
She said, well, and kind of like what we talk about a lot on the podcast there, everyone. I mean, people will advocate in their own way that they feel is good for them. Everyone has their own unique way of advocating, and there's nothing wrong with different ways of advocating, and that's how we, as a disability community and self advocates and organizations across our beautiful country, how we come together in our own ways. So we can disagree to agree on many things. I mean, different advocacy organizations or self advocates, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it's on how the individual person blossoms on their own advocacy of getting what their beliefs are and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And that's one thing I learned too. It's interesting that we're talking about your different pointers because, like, there's maybe you'll get into one of those points. I'm not sure, but there's strengths. You've got your strengths and your weaknesses. Now
Yeah.
it's so easy to look at your weaknesses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to look at, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, but what can you do? But I can't
Yeah.
do this. You look at your strengths and say, what are you able to do? And I had to learn that, and I gave a videography of that in class, and I got graded on it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, kind of it's like writing a book about yourself. It's not easy.
I wanted to get back to we have Peter Cunnington in chat, and I was talking about
Hi, Peter.
wanting to be normal, the quest to be normal, the quest to be the same as everybody else, and Peter says that that normal is a setting on the washing machine,
Yeah,
which is true.
that's a good one. I like that.
So let's go to point number 3 here now. I have to hide this one. Hold on, and we'll bring up 3. 3 is exaggerate the drama or the comedy. So when I was talking about exaggerating, thinking of yourself as a comic character or a fictional character, and exaggerating parts of your personality, you also want to exaggerate the situation, exaggerate the drama, or exaggerate the comedy of the situation. Because if you think about it, like, usually when you're going through something in your life, like in the now moment, when you're living through the now moment, there's a lot of things that it's very heightened. Like everything is like, holy shit, I can't believe this is happening, right? And then isn't until later that you have that you can look back on something and say, well, actually it wasn't really that bad. But the important thing is to latch on to the drama of the moment, because when it's happening to you, it's like, holy shit, right? And so you have to really kind of embrace that holy shit moment and really emphasize it, because that's what makes it fun.
Oh yeah,
And I think people appreciate when you can, you take artistic license with your own life, and maybe it didn't happen exactly that way, but it's more fun to write it like that. Like I can say in example in my own book, I talk about slipping on a Slurpee in the mall. Actually, but it didn't happen in the mall. It happened at school in grade 8. But I kind of took artistic license and I made it happen in the mall just because it was more. Yeah. It was easier to kind of build the narrative and make the story go faster. I wanted to increase the pace of the story and make it more convenient to kind of make it take place in the mall. So that did actually happen. Like the sliding on the Slurpee actually did happen, but it didn't happen in the mall. It happened at school. But but it kind of made it easier for me to tell it like it happened at the mall. So that's what I did. I exaggerated a little bit. I changed the events a little bit just for my own benefit or for my own convenience as a storyteller, right? And yeah.
It's like a time when we were traveling. I still remember the time, and I mean, it was frightening. It was really frightening at the moment of time. I mean, I got scolded by the train attendants. I mean, Sonia remembers this one, but I got scolded, and but I actually put a drama into, but it turned into like a funny event, a situation where I mentally I had to turn it around into. It was one of those moments where, sir, you need to keep an eye on your luggage, your own luggage. I go, I said, yeah, but I'm visually impaired. I mean, I have a sight impairment. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. So it was like, you need to keep an eye on it. I said, but how am I supposed to keep an eye on it where I thought it was here? It's not here anymore. And of course, you can imagine the frantic, the anxiety going through your mind and thinking, oh my gosh, where is it? And all of a sudden you hear on the loudspeaker, your attention, please keep an eye on your luggage at all times. Meanwhile, my luggage wasn't there. Well, I kept saying, no, it's there. I brought it with me. And there was other people behind me, but I wasn't looking. And I said, there was a person behind me. No, it's not there. Well, what it was in the moment of time where we had got off a bus, and it was at the main depot. And with all the confusion going on, we had carrying some carry-on bags and luggage we were carrying. Sonia had her hands full. And so anyway, I said, well, here, let me just grab the luggage. And there had other piece of luggage the driver had put onto the concrete, right, onto the loading area. And so I went to go and grab one, and I guess I turned around and I was more interested in grabbing all of our luggage. And there was another piece of luggage sitting there. Well, I continued on. Okay, well, we better get going into the station. Well, guess what? A piece of luggage was still sitting there on the corridor. Off we went. We get there, and I guess for some reason I thought I wanted to be, proactive to make sure we got all our luggage and start pulling it. It had wheels on it, so I was just like pulling it along. Wait a minute, feels like I thought, well, maybe she was pulling it. I wasn't even paying attention that she wasn't pulling the luggage. She had my luggage and like some of the other stuff, but then she had her luggage, but my luggage was left behind. Mm-hmm. Well, I got there and I was determined. I was determined, Neil, that my luggage. No, I had my luggage. It was there. Like, sir, it's. We'll have to get the CCTV to actually get our our company to zoom in and find out what's going on. So this is what happened, sir. The reality is, you came up here and you did not have your luggage. No, I didn't. No. The CCTV said no. You did not have
cameras. Don't lie. The cameras.
And so what it was is that, long story short, for all our listeners, I mean, you can make up, a story. Was like, well, no, I thought that it was there. But what it was is that I had left it there, which was true. Mm-hmm. But I thought that I had brought all the stuff because I was in a hurry so much things to carry on. We had snacks and all sorts of stuff that we brought on with us in our luggage, and then our nighttime gear that we had for overnight travel. Mm-hmm. There was they call it check luggage too, and stuff like that. So you had all the tags on it. Well, the other train company was parked in the yard. So, but they put it into their own security area, my luggage, which I didn't know. So when they went out, the train company that I was traveling on via rail, they went out and they couldn't find it. Well, And so it was a communication breakdown, not with me. They didn't communicate with the other company, Amtrak. And so anyway, Amtrak employees figured that for safety, they figured they'll take it upon themselves to put it into a secure area so it wouldn't go missing. Well, they found it where we actually had to board onto the train. And well, off I go with no luggage, right? A piece. I'm thinking, oh my, no. They found it. Attendant comes on and says, we found your luggage. We found your luggage. keep it close by at all times. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
So I caused the train to actually be delayed by leaving the station because they
It's
were
your fault.
they knew it was in there. They knew that the CCTV showed that nobody actually left out of the premises with my luggage. They,
Yeah.
because I gave a description of it, and they actually it showed that when the actual employees from the other company got it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my story about the is almost like the factual versus what really did happen versus what could have happened is interesting. I mean, I could write a book about all these different changes.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Brent rides the train. Let's
yeah,
let's
but
go to point number 4.
I had to slip that part in there just for our listeners, viewers. They're like, "Oh my God, you must have been frantic." I go, "Yeah, the anxiety was really, really pumping, and I hadn't even started the trip yet." Sonia's laughing. Yeah.
Here's the 4th point is reveal secrets and have
Mm,
courage for the uncomfortable. So
that was a secret I just revealed there.
yeah, you were saying earlier that you know that you kind of alluded to the fact that people want to focus on the negative sometimes and they don't
Yeah.
focus on the positives. This is a little bit different in the sense that you know, maybe not everything in your life is good. Like maybe there's some kind of bad parts or things that are hard to talk about. But it's important to kind of reveal those secrets and have courage to talk about things that are hard. And again, I came across this kind of nugget or a tip based on people that I gave my book out to that I trusted. Again, you know, there was one man that I gave my book out to. He's gone now. He died of brain cancer actually, but he was an amazing man. He ran a summer camp, like a Christian summer camp for people with disabilities.
Okay.
In California, like along the California-Mexican border. I went there with my wife the year before we were married. We went over there, and it was really cool. This idea of thinking about Christianity, but with a disabled lens.
Right.
And it was just really cool. Anyway, so and the reason why I gave my book to him is not just because he was good at talking about things with a disability lens on it, but also that he was just an amazing speaker and writer himself. Like the way he spoke and the way he wrote was just incredible. And so I thought, well, I'll give him my book, and I think he's going to love it. And so I gave it to him. He says he didn't love it. He's like, I don't like what you did here, you know, because he says all you wrote about was the comedy. He says you just wrote about the fun and comedy, and you haven't written about anything hard. And he says, why haven't you written about anything hard? And I told him, I said, like, my main focus for writing the book was to just have fun and to emphasize kind of the fun side of disability. But then he says, well, you really should be talking about your hard things too, because if you don't talk about your hard things, then it comes across like you're not really being truthful. You're not telling the whole story. If you don't talk about your hard things, you're not telling the whole story. So, and also too, like I talk, this point 4 is about revealing secrets. So in the sense that when you write your memoir, you want to have a couple things, at least 1 or 2 things in there that you haven't even told your closest friend actually. Like there's, I know everybody's got like 1 or 2 friends that they're super close with that they tell everything to, but almost like when you write like a memoir, you almost want to reveal things you haven't even told anybody. The only person that knows something is you, and you're gonna reveal this for the very first time. And I'll tell you, that's That's kind of very liberating to do that. It's very hard to do that. Very hard to do that. But that's where you get to the real truth and the brass tacks of the whole point of writing a memoir, is to get kind of strip yourself naked and just like say, this is me, and I'm gonna show you my raw and true emotion in that moment, or whatever. And then people will read that genuine take, and then you'll have more of a buy-in. Like if you don't reveal your secrets, and you don't reveal anything uncomfortable, people are like, well, why am I even bothering to read this? This is pointless, right?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that, because it's hard to talk about negative things or things that are secret in a person's life. I mean, they feel, I think maybe people feel that they'll be judged on what they want to reveal, but it's their own lived experience, is what they've gone through, and some things are more uncomfortable to talk about. Maybe they just want to kind of bury that in a a hutch, and they say, no, I can't talk about that, because it's probably very hurtful, maybe at times, what they've gone through. Maybe it's trauma, or maybe other things that they just don't. They maybe think that people don't want to hear what they want to talk about. And I've gone through things in my life where, like, personally, growing up, I grew up with a single mother, brought my brother and me, and I mean, there was things that I never talked about for years. I mean, there's one thing I can reveal, that my brother used to tie me up. Like, wow. Literally, people would be shocked to hear this. My brother would tie me up, and he thought it was funny. Like, he thought it was funny. I was screaming. I was crying. My mom had gone to work. I was supposed to be going to school. My brother had gone to school. I was supposed to be there. A school bus was supposed to come by to pick me up. Well, I'm at home and I'm tied up. Like, he literally got some rope and tied me up to this chair, and it was one of those I call it like one of those like a grandpa chair type of, you know what I mean, one of those big giant chairs.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. Maybe it's not a grandpa chair. What they're called? They're like recliner, like a big,
okay.
recliners. Yeah. Well, he had this rope, and my brother was very sophisticated on, like, he would build places, like, so he learned how to do carpentry and painting and all sorts of things. Anyway, he got this tight rope and he tied it all around. I mean, it was so tight around my ankles, and I was able to loosen it a little bit somehow, but my hands were tied up too. So, like, he would tie it up so I couldn't move. The phone rang. What it was, and like, I heard the phone ringing. I thought, like, I can't get the phone. And he had locked the door. He had his own key, so he locked the door, so neighbors couldn't even come in. My mom had her kitty cats. My mom, as anyone who knew who I was many years ago, my mom loved her family. Her family were her pets, her hobby farm. So the cats were going crazy because the phone was ringing, I guess the high pitch or something. They would run across the table. Anyway, they ran across and they hit the receiver off the phone. You know, those used to have those little dial-tone phones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the cat ran across and knocked the phone off the receiver. The phone was ringing, and I saw the receiver sitting there, and I could hear this, hello. I'm like, help. Like, and it was my neighbor. It was my neighbor who was calling, saying she saw the school bus show up and I didn't see me get on, and she wasn't sure if I was sick at home with bad allergy season, because I was having a bad allergy season too. So I guess maybe one of those situations where maybe I shouldn't have gone to school anyway, because it was really bad, but I was going to push myself to go to school. And I'm like, help. And so my neighbor had a key for the house for an emergency purpose. So she came in and opened up the door and saw me tied up. So she untied me and she said, who did this? I go, who do you think? So yeah, that was kind of a real thing. Like, I mean, there was different things that I'd gone through, and I mean, maybe one day I'll do an episode and I'll talk about these things. But since we were mentioning that, and that would be a good book. Like,
so you could write your own book there, Brent. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to what are we on? We're on point number 4. So let's go to point number 5. So I'll flip the title. Point number 5 is entrust your first drafts to harsh, honest criticism.
Yes.
You know, that is like the biggest one. Is that you don't want to give your book to somebody that's just going to say, "Oh, that's wonderful, Neil. That's wonderful, Brent. I love it."
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, because then your book won't change to be better. It'll just be some stupid story that doesn't say anything. Like, for example, you know, like I said, that the man that did the Christian camp, and you know, I was convinced that he was going to love it, and he said, "No, I don't love it," but he was honest with me, and because he was honest with me, it made the story that I ended up telling to be that much better, because I ended up putting all that real hard, hurtful stuff in there that wasn't in there before, and it wouldn't have made my book. It wouldn't, all that hard, hurtful stuff wouldn't have made my book if that man hadn't been really honest with me and said, you know, this isn't really that great, because all you're talking about is the fun stuff. He says, I don't want to only see the fun stuff. Give me the hard stuff. Give me the stuff that was really difficult for you. I want to read about that. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, it's really, that is a big one, and you know, and we can get political here too, and say I think there's a lot of politicians that have a lot of yes men around them, mm-hmm. and say, oh, you know, yes, Doug Ford, that's a great idea, Doug Ford, or yes, David Eby, that's a great idea. You know, you can't be surrounded by yes men all the time saying, oh, that's a wonderful idea, you know, Mike Harcourt, that you're going to take away pensions, you know, that's great, I love it. You know, like, if you have more people saying that's an awful idea, that sucks, I hate it, you know, mm-hmm. that's where the real change happens. That's where you really get to the real meat of the story that should be told. Because if nobody told me that they hated it, that my first version of the story sucked, it never would have became the story that actually, it never would have become what it actually should have been or now is, you know. So
and that's very important to mention, all that, because like criticism, constructive criticism, and I'll give an example. We mentioned political, long lost friend, Mr. John Horgan, was the Premier of British Columbia. He was quite a mentor to me. He taught me a lot about advocating and standing up for what I believe is right. I mean, constructive criticism. Yes, him and I had some discussions regarding some advocacy stuff, and he told me, learning lessons, like, don't do that. Like he said, and he was very firm with me. Brent, do not do that. Okay, like, it's not helpful. And well, I don't mean anything wrong. He says, no, it's on how you worded things, right? Mm-hmm. Where I would say, well, why has the government not raised the rates? And I would take the opposition party and the governing party together, and I say, so if you were in government, why did you not do this? But you're in government, why? What are you going to do? And I would pin them both together, and I say, I go, the narrative. Oh, I said 16 years versus now government, and I would tag them both in it. And I
would do that too. I was bad for that.
Yeah, and I never really thought about it at the time. Like, I was like, I didn't, I told him I didn't mean anything wrong about it, and he said it was like a conflict of interest. That's what he told me. It was one of those technical conflict of interest situations. He says, and I'm not telling you, which government is better or worse. But he said, if you're going to stick in the lane, stick in the lane. And I mean, hold us accountable. Say, like, why are you not raising the rates? You need to do better. And the keywords of need to do better. Why are you not doing this? And those are fine, but taking both in, and I've learned that over advocacy, like constructive criticism. And I guess as an overview, I could say, from what John Horgan had taught me was the government needs to do better. And he even told me that government needs to do better because they hear from advocates, self-advocates or organizations, and how to teach the government, like, what are you doing wrong? What can you do better? And not just talk about it, but he said, have bold ideas of saying, this is what I want you to do. Because yeah, like that's how I learned. And basically also another constructive criticism was if you advocate for the same thing over and over and over and over and keep pushing the narrative, they want to try to shut you down, right? Quiet you down, like, hey, quiet down, quiet down. Yeah. Doesn't mean that they mean wrong. It's like, take a break, push the narrative, take a break, push the narrative. And I mean, you live and learn. Another person who taught me about advocating, and I'm bad. I shouldn't say I'm really bad at it, but there's one area that I really would love to focus more on, and we've talked about it on the podcast many times, about seniors with disabilities. Yeah. Seniors, and the government's bad about that. They're very, very bad about that because they don't advocate for seniors with disabilities. Disabilities don't go away. The narrative is, oh, well, once you reach 65, your PWD status goes off, and now you're just a senior on OAS or GIS or CPP. Your disability doesn't go away. So you still, like, they just classified as, oh, you're just a senior. Well, you've got disabilities. So I want to focus more about the advocacy on how to continue that on. Yeah. Of making sure that seniors with disabilities are included in the conversations. And that was constructive criticism that we had. I think I know, you know, probably who I'm referring to, where the person said, well, you don't talk about that. You don't talk about that on your podcast enough. And back when I didn't talk about it enough, and I'm sorry, like, I apologize. I must do better, and I will do better, carrying that forward. And anyone watching this, like, if you feel offended that when we do our podcast that we don't talk about seniors with disabilities, it's not that we don't think about it. I think that, you know, going forward, I think that we should really emphasize more about, I mean, like, everybody who has a disability. If you're a child who has a disability, you're a youth, you're an adult, you're a senior. I mean, disabilities, there should be no certain categories. And I mean, the federal government is bad at that too, right? And they're saying working age people with disabilities will qualify for the CDP. Well, what about people that aren't working? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there's that divide. Or so I think there's lots to take away from a lot of these things. And I guess it's about teaching ourselves and teaching politicians that, yeah, it's okay to make mistakes, politically incorrect, or how we word things. I think we learn from each other, and constructive criticism.
No, yeah, like with the clawback situation, I would be writing emails like at least every month, at least one email, probably two emails a month at the beginning, and then I realized, you know what, this isn't really working, and I'm to the point now that I'll do like one a year now, you know, and it's like somebody might look at that and go, well, is it because you're giving up? And it's like, no, I'm just like stepping away and making my words count more, you know. Yeah. Of just taking one stab at the cat this time, like, and just kind of doing it one time. You know, my wife has this. My current wife has this saying, one time, big time. Like, if you're gonna do something, do it one time, big time. And so I've kind of adopted that that way of, like, if I'm gonna do something, I'll do it one time, big time, and then, you know, I'll take a break again. And it's better for your mental health too, because it was really messing with me to always be talking about you know, how much the government isn't doing about the clawbacks and all that kind of stuff. But
and there's nothing wrong with you know, taking like a mental break on certain things, like topics. And I found that too, even just advocating on like in my neighborhood, talking to people, like understanding where they're coming from, what they want to see changed in the community. And you know, like when things that affect their lives, is it accessibility, transit, you know, curbside accessibility barriers that are around there, what can be changed, and sometimes I see the person, and it's not like I mean to ignore them, and I don't. It's like, oh no, like that person wants to bombard me again with that information. And so I take that mental break, and I see the person, I kind of, turn the other way and go a different direction, because sometimes it's just that mental break. And it's like, I love to hear the conversations. And then I'll kind of go back and I'll see that person again, because they walk around the neighborhood too. And I go, hey, and oh, I thought I saw you the other day coming this way. Oh yeah, I forgot something. And it's not that I try to avoid the conversation. It's like sometimes you just have to take that mental break and take a step back, because you have to focus on how to fix the issues in life. I like to fix a lot of things, but unfortunately, we can't fix everything. But yeah, I learn from other people's advocacy too. That's what I enjoy so much about advocacy, because I learn so much from other people. Maybe something works good, and maybe sometimes I need to tweak things up, or constructive criticism. Like we get ideas from people that will say, hey, you guys thought about maybe doing the intro this way, or interjecting different talking points into our opening announcements, or story ideas, like show ideas. Like different constructive criticism. Like someone had mentioned, well, I thought you said you were going to do a dial-in program. I thought you said that on the show. I go, well, that was something that I kind of looked at, but at the same time, I don't think that the show right now is ready for that.
We did shop it.
But I think it was just there was a lot of robocalls. A lot of people were getting spam calls, and that's the last thing we want is to, oh, hi, you're up next, and all of a sudden, boom, you're getting bombarded with something. So I think that the show, the way things are going now, is perfect. But any other ideas?
But if there are people that really don't like something, again, like criticism is valid on both sides.
Yep.
Like if you hate something, I want to know it. Like and it's funny. I was reading to talk about the YouTube algorithm. They said that negative comments actually help push the algorithm more. So even if you get somebody to slam your channel or slam a video and say, I hate this, it sucked, that actually like perks the ears of the algorithm and go, wow, and they'll look at the negative comments too and go, what, maybe I'll push this video more then. So it doesn't really matter if it's positive or negative. Like all comments are valid, whether they're positive or negative. Let's go to the other comment, or the next one here. We're on point number 6. Oh, I have to turn it on here. 1 second. The 6th one is get a professional to edit, proofread your manuscript. And so that's kind of similar to the previous one of entrusting your manuscript to criticism, but it's going beyond that, because if you have the money, and I'll use my book as an example. And again, I realize that most people with a disability might not have the money to do this, and at the time I did it 15, 16 years ago, I didn't really have the money either, but I did it anyway. It costed me about I think it was about between $35,000 and $4,000, and I'll tell you what I got. And this is to self-publish your book, to get it self-published legitimately. What it is that it takes about $1,000 or so to hire a professional editor. And I went through it was Word of Life Press, and they're based in Winnipeg, and they're a Christian publisher, because my book is part of my book is talking about my faith journey, basically, right? A little bit of that, my faith journey is kind of woven into the book as well. And so I got a Christian publisher to publish it and to distribute it and to print it. Like they actually printed hard copies of it, and so they have this program where you could hire basically a professional editor to look at your manuscript, basically $1,000 or roughly, I think it was. So that you think, well, that's a lot of money, and it was. But I'll tell you, it's money well spent, because it's very hard to look at your own work and say it's good. Like you really need somebody to really look at it and not just edit it, but they also like the way they typesetted it on the page, just the whole look of it, you know, and like I would have telephone conversations back and forth. Like he would actually call me and we'd have telephone conversations back and forth, and he'd say, well, he would read part of my book and say, well, what did you intend to do this, like to show here in this part of the story? And he would really try to crawl into my brain and understand my you know,
what you were thinking,
what my intention was.
Yeah.
And it was like in a way that I couldn't have done myself. You know, and so that was really important to have that, and also too, like when in the process of having somebody professionally edit it, I also realized there was a couple of gaps, because he would keep coming back to me with questions and so, well, why is this happening here? Like, he would kind of point out there's some gaps in the narrative. So in the process of editing, I actually ended up writing 2 whole other chapters to fill in the gaps that he kind of identified. He says, well, there's a couple of gaps here. So I actually went and I actually wrote another couple of chapters to kind of fill in the spaces or fill in the gaps that he kind of identified. And so there again, it made my story that much better. You know, so that was good. And also, so you had the professional editor. So that was $1,000 there. But then I also hired a professional cover artist. They did the front cover and the back cover. Something that I couldn't have done myself. You know, I came up with the picture. There's a picture. Well, it's on the thumbnail. You'll see a picture of the front cover, and there's a story behind that. Is that when I first started to write my book in kind of for real, like it started. Like I said, it started when I was in grade 11 and 12. I did the first 2 chapters, but then I was 22 when I was taking a break from after my first year at university. I visited my grandma and grandpa up in Summerland. I was up there for like 3 weeks, I think, during my my spring break, and I had brought up my manuscript, and I was telling them I'm writing. So I did a little bit of writing, and so I showed them, you know, the draft of my book, and I told my grandpa, because my grandpa's an artist. He's a watercolor painter. In fact, you can see a couple of paintings on the wall on not on the back wall by the couch, but on the hallway there. You can see a couple of them. He's a very talented, or he was a very talented watercolor painter. So I said, could you do my front cover, like the cover from my book? He says, yeah, that'd be great. So he did, and he did a sketch of my and a painting using watercolor of just my legs. So from the hips down, of just showing my legs and the crutches. And I thought, well, that's weird. I said, well, why did you decide to do that? Just my legs and the crutches. And he says, well, that's the only thing that makes you different. That's the only thing that makes you different is your bent legs. And I thought, well, that's very, very interesting. And I just kind of kept that in my back pocket.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have to say too, that I ended up putting my manuscript away, for a long time. Like, after I kind of did a first draft at 22, I kept putting it away, and I didn't really take it out again until about age 40. You know, I was almost 41, and that was when we had Jake, and then I thought, well, now that I have a son, now it feels like my story's complete, and so that's really what got me to actually finish the story. So I had basically shelved my book for almost 19 years, where I had the beginning of the story of all my kind of school experience, and it just kind of, and I thought, well, this isn't. It's almost like read like a short story, but it wasn't enough for even a short story. It was all kind of discombobulated, and I thought, well, it's not really anything unified yet. And I thought, well, maybe I just have to keep waiting until there's something significant happens. And so that's what it was. It was the birth of my son.
It triggered off.
And that just kind of triggered it. I thought, now I have my whole story. And so here I kind of sat on my book for 19 years, and not to say that everybody's going to do this, but I basically did. I sat on my book for 19 years, and then I thought, now I have my story, and then I wrote basically half the book that you see that people read if they pick it up and read it. They'll see like half the book was written after my son was born, and I wrote like the half of the book in like 4 months.
Oh wow!
And the first half was basically, you know, in the early part of my life, and I just kind of shelved it, and I came back 19 years later and finished the book.
Well, sometimes that's what it takes, Neil, is to just to find that perfect time of when to complete the book, right? Mm-hmm. There's no perfect timing of the right or wrong way of timings of it. And sometimes things just come up in life, or you just want to take a nice good pause, break, and then continue it on. And movie actors do the same thing. Singers do the same thing. Advocates do the same thing. I mean, they'll come up with a different idea, and then they say, "Oh, well, you know what? Let's revisit this other idea again because it works." And there's appetite for a certain discussion on certain things. And
so what I wanted to say to finish up this point 6 is that, you know, I had the professional editor that was amazing. And so that was, like I said, $1,000, and then I had somebody do the front cover, and that was another $500. And then the other $2,000 or so was to actually print the book. So it cost and I had to do a first run of 500 copies. For 500 hard copies of the book. It was going to be between $2,000 and $2,500 to print 500 copies, and then what the publisher did, the Word Alive Press did, is they took 300 copies of that, and then they were the ones that distributed them all over the place, and they gave me 200 copies that I could distribute them however I wanted. And so again, that was roughly $2,000, and again, it's a lot of money. So that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. And I was going to say, you can compare that to now, where it might be easier to self-publish now, in the sense that there's a lot more, like Amazon actually makes it a lot easier now to just, if you wanted to just do your own manuscript, you don't even have to put in a cent. You can just type your manuscript out and then just run it through an ebook creator kind of thing. What was I going? I have notes. It's not called ebook. Well, I mean, it is an ebook, but there's a special term that they use. It's
interesting.
What do they call it? I had it written down here. I don't see it right now. Anyway, what I was going to say too is the publisher, they give the book what's called an ISBN number, and the ISBN number stands for International Standard Book Number. And so that they give that to that ISBN number is given to any kind of publisher or any kind of library or bookseller will get an ISBN number. So my book is presented on the international stage around the world. Wow. It's given this one number, and if I give somebody the one number, they can look up my book anywhere in the world based on this ISBN number. So that's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I was going to say is, if you wanted to go cheap and not go the professional, publisher route, and not spend the $4,000 that I did, you can just do it yourself on Amazon now with these ebook creators, and then Amazon has its own numbering system for different product categories, right? And they have something called an ASIN number, which is, and that stands for Amazon Standard Identification Number. So I have an ebook on Amazon that's not officially published anywhere except on Amazon. For my second book, I have a Daddy Bent Legs 1 and I have a Daddy Bent Legs 2. It's actually called Daddy Bent Legs 2 with a TOO, like as in Daddy Bent Legs Again kind of thing. So it's a sequel to my first Daddy Bent Legs. And I talk about basically the grieving process with my wife, but the death of my first wife is a big part of the story. So anyway, it's called Daddy Bent Legs 2, and I released it only on Amazon. And so that one has an ASIN number, the Amazon Standard Identification Number. So again, and that didn't cost me anything. And as far as getting my manuscript into a format that Amazon accepted, they have their own tool on there. So you basically just create your account on Amazon, and then you feed your book through this ebook creator tool, basically. I think it's called Mobi. The format of the book, an ebook, is called Mobi. It's I don't know what it stands for. That's the most standard version of an ebook is a Mobi format. Anyway, so you feed that into this tool on Amazon, and then they create the book right on Amazon, right on the Amazon page. Oh. You basically sign up for an Amazon author page or an Amazon creator page, and then once you publish the book on Amazon, they give you this ASIN number, which is their own Amazon number. So again, that basically costs $0 to do it then, and you can sell your book for however much you want at that point. So there is a cheap way to do it and a more expensive way to do it. So I did it kind of the more expensive way, and I think probably the prices have gone up since I did it, because I did it like 15 years ago. Yeah. And like I said, when I did it, it was roughly $3,500 or $4,000 to do 500 copy print, initial print. And actually, that first 500 copies sold. I was able to sell my own 300 copies. So I ended up doing another run of 100, and then that sold. And then I got another 100 run, and that sold. So based on all the books that I end up selling, was around 700 copies are probably circulating out there in the ether. And from those sales, I basically broke even. So my 8th point, actually maybe I should get to the 7th point first. I'll go to the 7th here. I'll hide this one, because I think my 7th point talks about be prepared to put in the effort to promote your book. Mm-hmm. And when because writing the book is only half the battle. Like, once you write the book, there's a lot of promotion involved, and that's the part where I kind of dropped. I kind of didn't do a very good job. I thought, well, I'll write the book, and then after I wrote the book, I didn't put the effort in. Like, it was my bad. But really, if you want to if you want to do the proper job, you really have to put a lot of effort into, after you write your book, you have to put a lot of promotion in.
Yeah.
And my 8th point, or my 7A or B point, would be don't expect to make a lot of money doing this, because, like I said, I barely broke even. Like, I think I just broke even on my $4,000 investment.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
so I didn't really make money, and but it was something that I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, even if I don't make any money back at all, I still want to do it. So in my case, I basically broke even. So I spent maybe $35 to $4,000 I had to invest in, and I probably got about $4,000 out of it again. So I was able to recoup my original investment, but I certainly didn't make anything extra out of that. So
Well,
that's kind of the.
definitely a book worth reading.
What's that?
I said it's definitely a book worth reading.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
recommend people to check it out.
yeah, and anybody that is interested in it, what I have done is, at the bottom of this video, I've already put the link. If you click on the link, you'll go to my webpage, where I have a link to my Daddy Bentlegs one, the first one, the original one that was published by Word Alive, and then I have my second one, my sequel, my Daddy Bentlegs 2, which I didn't publish. It's just out there, like I said, it's just out there on Amazon as something. And anyway, I've made both of them freely available. Both copies are freely available on my website. So if you click on the link, you'll get to my page, and you'll see 2 links, one for my first book and one for my second book. And if you click either of those links, you'll get a digital copy. It'll be in a PDF format, like a Adobe Reader format. So anybody can read the book in Adobe format. They can read both books, totally free. And if you like the book, they can send me a few bucks through our channel now. You can we always say the buy me a coffee thing. So you can buy me a coffee, you can buy Brent a coffee and say I love that book, or you can even say I hate it, but here's $2 anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Well, that sounds really interesting, Neil, on how you basically came about getting the book going, all the ideas and the implementation, and having the editor going through that with you, and just kind of racking your brain of why was this missing, or where were you going with that, and the constructive criticisms and everything else, kind of all along the pathway of getting the book going. I mean, congratulations on that too, by the way. I mean, it takes a lot of work and effort to put into writing a book, I'm sure. And then, I think a lot of people with disabilities have a lot of their stories that they want to be told out to the public. They want to share their experiences with people. And I mean, with how you've described it, I mean, maybe that will actually help people get those ideas in motion. I mean, if you really want to reach out and get to know more about how to do that, I mean, reach out to Neil, and he can maybe Neil, you could probably respond back to them.
Yeah. And I did want to make the point again. There's the cheap way to do it through Amazon. It costs you $0.
Yeah.
Or there's the more expensive way to do it through an official publisher, like I did through Word Alive Press in Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. So there's the expensive way to do it, or there's a non-expensive way to do it, and they're both valid. They both work. So it just depends, like, how much you're willing to put in, like how serious you are about it. Like if it's a very passionate thing, like, and you have the money to do it, or somebody's giving you the money to do it, then go and try the expensive way, because I mean, I'm glad that I did. It's kind of a bucket list thing. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it the one time. It's something that I wouldn't do again, because it is super expensive, and it's, like I said, I wasn't really prepared to do the promotion. I've always said that I'm not a very good. Like, some people are a good salesman. Some people are very just kind of born salesmen, and I've never been a good salesman, I don't think. And so that the part about selling my book was really hard. It was very hard for me. It was very challenging for me. Like, I thought the hard part was actually getting my book published, but actually the hardest part was actually promoting it afterwards.
Yeah.
It was really hard for me, really challenging.
Yeah, well, that's when we mentioned like there's strengths and there's weaknesses, and I mean everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and I mean if you have a passion, I mean this message goes to all of our listeners and viewers. If you have a passion in your life, that's something that you really really enjoy doing or talking about. I mean, and here's the opportunity. I mean, if you know for yourself is that if you really want to write a book, I mean, and then you have the financial means if you want a hard copy, go for it, right? If you can't afford that, I mean, what Neil has mentioned, I mean, do it the free way if that's what works good for you, and you feel comfortable about doing that. I mean, throw it out there, or just do what I learned and what we've all probably learned over time in school, right? I mean, at least I hope some people learned that. I'm not sure. Depends on our education system, right? But I remember teachers used to saying, okay, so class, here's where you got 20 minutes, do some brainstorming. They call it brainstorming, right? And just write whatever comes to your mind. It doesn't matter if it made sense or didn't make sense. Throw it down on a piece of paper, and then we'll go through it after. And that's kind of all your pre-thoughts, your positive, negatives. Throw it down. Doesn't matter if it made sense. And it really helped build like a storyline.
Well, that's a great point, Brent, because actually that was going to be my bonus number 8 or 7A or 7B.
Was in your mind?
Yeah, what was the fact that like in my case, my own book, I probably threw at least half of it away. Like, again, my first book is published. It's like 130 pages. I probably threw away 130 pages, honestly. So at least, I would say at least half of the book is in the garbage. But it's one of those things, like you said, like if you just start writing, even if it's crap, there might be like a little nugget, one little nugget in like, say, 50 pages of crap. There's one little nugget that's like, wow, this is good. And that's what I would do. Like, I do the same thing when I do photography, and I think Ellen would say the same thing with photography, is you'll maybe take 50 really bad pictures, and you'll take one good picture. I mean, I'll throw away the 50 bad pictures, and I'll keep the one good one. It's the same thing with writing. Is if you write 50 really bad pages, just keep that one page or that one little nugget that's good, and then build on that. And that's what I would do. I threw out so much in my book that I said, well, that's not good enough because it was too much the same. Like it was too mundane, and that's the going back to the criticism again. That's the criticism I got. It was like, I don't want to read about the same. I don't want to read about the mundane. I don't want to read about the everyday. I want to learn about the different. I want to learn about the struggle. I want to learn about how your life is harder or more different than mine. And so I was always like refining that and throwing away everything else that was just kind of fluff and basically garbage.
That's one thing that I learned over time too, is it's okay to, just throw down, like I had an instructor who said that it's okay just to throw down, brainstorming ideas. I mean, and I said, yeah, I remember learning that in high school. Right. And the instructor in college, she said the same thing. Like, yeah, you just throw down whatever comes to your mind. Just throw it down there. And we're going to pick away at different things that stand out of those good ideas. There's probably garbage ideas or good ideas. We'll pick out all of the good ideas, and maybe we'll take some of the garbage ideas too, because maybe the class might learn something from those other ideas that you may think they're garbage. They still may be useful.
You can still refine them. You can still refine them.
Yes, because you could actually build up a story. Yeah. And we were talking about how to build stories, and then they call it the incline, right? And then you got your climax. Yeah. Yeah, and then you got your downhill. So they describe it as going up a mountain at the top, and then you got the top, and now you got the main. Now you got the main feature. You got the main feature. Yeah. Now you got the ending, and it goes down. And that's how it was stuck in my mind on that. And I struggled. I really had struggled trying to get to the theme of to build up the story.
Yeah.
And we went through it over and over, and I guess trial by error.
And actually, Brent, you're doing a good job at jogging my own brain, because I did want to get to the point too of back to my first point of thinking about yourself as a fictional character.
Mhm.
A big part of that too is like you'll see that in TV sitcoms and stuff too, where you know where the character at the beginning of a show at episode 1 is not the same character as in season 4 episode 20, right?
Yeah.
They go through a change, and that's important too, is that you want to again create this character of yourself that people can identify with, but that they can see a change in that person. Like you don't want to be the same. You don't want to be the same character that you present at page 1.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the same static character at page 1 as you are at page 130.
Yeah, you want to evolve over time.
You want to evolve the character, show this evolution of the character from page 1 to page 130. Like in my book, for example, it's 130 pages. I hope that's what I've done in my book, is I've shown a growth. I've shown a part of me from page 1 to page 130 where I'm completely different. I'm a completely different person than I am from page 1, and I think that's a really important thing too. So that's part of the characterization part of it.
Yeah, it's the storytelling part of it, and it really builds up the climate. It's like when you're watching a suspense movie. You know, I'll throw that in there just to really entice our listeners and viewers, maybe on how to write a good memoir. I mean, just as an example, so if you're watching a suspense movie, right? I learned this in school. So you want to build up your characters, right? At the beginning of saying, okay, well, who are the good characters and who are going to be the bad characters, right? So you're building up the good characters, and so the storyline's going along, and Harry met Sally, say, just for instance, okay? So now Harry, you think, okay, Harry's a good guy, and Sally, she's just fantastic, right? So you're building up, and they get to know each other, their families get to know each other, and then you look at their siblings on each side and say, oh, they're interesting characters. Well, their characters now evolve over time. Well, now your main thing is you're thinking, okay, Harry and Sally. So that's your main focal point. You're thinking those two characters. Well, what about the siblings? Now you don't really hear too much about them. Well, then all of a sudden the siblings start talking about Harry. Well, Harry, what happened in Harry's life? Well, people go, oh, so you hear about stories. Now they get to a point where Harry's now the center of attention. Well, what about Sally? So Sally now gets to a point where Sally gets into a car accident. I remember this one story we were taught. So Sally, what happened? What happened? Well, Harry was away on holidays all of a sudden. Well, why did Harry go away? Well, Harry went away because Harry, apparently the siblings, they heard through word of mouth, was Harry had actually done something to the brakes on the car of Sally's car.
Oh.
And it got to a climate. You see what I mean? So it's interesting on how you build it up. Well, then how it came about was that I guess Harry thought that Sally wasn't going to make it because it was a drama, it was a suspense, and it was a plot on how to kill Sally.
Right.
Well, Sally made it through. Everyone thought, okay, Sally, that she was not going to make it. Well, Sally's sister had siblings had basically turned around and actually killed off the main character, Harry.
Oh.
You see, here's the plot. You thought it was actually the other way around. Well, it actually had backfired on.
Surprise.
You see what I mean? So you build up that plot up to the top, and then you say, oh my God. And then there's that twist. It turned out the twist was that Sally, in the end, wanted to kill Harry, but he tried killing her. So, yeah. And what it was, the twist was that they both end up killing each other at the end.
Oh, wow.
Imagine. I mean, so, you think like, and I watch these suspense movies sometimes too, and you think, no, I know who the killer is. I know who is, and also, Oh my gosh, I didn't
Did you
know.
ever watch that movie War of the Roses, where they end up on the chandelier at the end of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they both basically both end up dying? Anyway, it kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of that.
Or how about that? How about that one called Clue? Remember, yeah, you had the board game, but
Yeah,
then the movie.
yeah.
There's other ones too. And then, I mean, some people probably don't get into a lot of the suspense movies. I don't know. Maybe you do. There was one out there. Oh, what was it now? There was a lot of sequels to it. Um, there was a one where it had a mask on and it went around. Oh, Scream,
Oh
Scream.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I first watched the first episode. I thought, oh, okay, this is kind of different. It ended up and being someone who I never thought was the character, who was actually was the one who was actually involved in, basically tormenting the one character in there.
Oh
I thought,
wow.
wow. And that's what I mean, like on how you build up a story. Like these are different ideas, but
Yeah.
some people think that it's one thing and then it's something else. And I mean, I would love to write a book about disability advocacy and in my lens, like the lens that how I see it. And we'll talk more about that. But I
Yeah,
think it'd be really interesting.
and I think my closing comment for everything is, when when I originally wanted to write the book, I wanted it to be a fun thing. I wanted to show the
Yeah.
humor in it,
Yeah.
and that's important. But you also have to show the hard stuff too, like I said. But
Mhm.
kind of like we do here on the podcast is we talk about the hard stuff,
Mhm.
but you have to do it in a way that's palatable, if that's the word. Like
Yeah.
make it fun too. Like
Yeah. Get have fun times with it.
put some sugar in with your medicine, or like attract the bees with the honey kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I know that was a big part of my, when you first came to me, that was a big part of my mandate for the whole podcast. Is like, yeah,
Yeah.
we can do this, but I don't want to just come on here and bitch about everything. Like
Yeah.
I want it to be a fun thing where we can inject humor with advocacy about serious things. So again,
Yeah.
like my book is a serious, talks about serious things too, but it talks about it in a fun way that's approachable. So it's not like you don't turn people off. And I think that's important. Is whether you're doing a book or you're doing a podcast, you don't want to turn people off and go, I don't want to listen to the people bellyache all the time. Like who can, like, no
Yeah.
thanks, right?
Exactly. It's like when we do our podcast, like some people will say, "Oh, I love that." My neighbor watches the podcast all the time, and he says, "I love that where you were taking down the government that one day." He says, "You guys were just torpedoing the government."
Mm.
I said, "But he said, but you didn't do it in a bad way. You were making facts, And I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, we state the facts that the best of our knowledge." But it's not about the government though. I said it's all about policies,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what everything's about. Is about policies. Is that certain governments are okay with keeping status quo because hey, it's always worked that way. It's always been that way. We don't need to change it. Copy, rinse, repeat, do it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
After a while, it becomes very stale. Like it becomes very minute, should we say, and it affects people's lives on their decision making. So, and that's why we're here as advocates. And it doesn't matter what political stripe that a person votes for across Canada. It's on what is your representative going to do within the governing party that's in, and how are they going to push the current government to change policies. So, it's nothing against different politicians. Like we've had politicians on, and they've taken in great stride of saying, yeah, thank you for your strong advocacy. And I said, I don't take it personally. Like we're throwing mudslings at you and saying, well, heck, why are you okay with status quo? In other words, we don't say these things, but like, why are you okay with status quo? Keeping like the hens over the pen here, or the
Yeah.
Your gates, and you're like the gatekeeper. No,
Yeah.
we're not going to change policy. And what we're saying is that the policy is okay. It's okay to make mistakes as government. It's okay.
Yeah.
But you need to learn from your mistakes and don't do it again. Like change the policy to better people's lives. And I think a lot of people have so much potential, and in so many ways of letting their who they are shine. Just shine
Yeah.
who they are, and their advocacy can change things.
And
for the
I
better.
just wanted to say again, there's the other side of yes, you're right that you can show the governments like it's okay to make mistakes and admit to your mistakes, but also too, from the advocate's point of view,
Yep.
it's very easy to burn out. It's very easy to burn out and go, "Oh, this sucks." I mean, just to take one example of the CDB, the CDB sucks because it's like it requires the DTC, the disability tax credit, as a barrier, and
Something blocked.
yeah, so it's very easy to get burnt out by that. All this negativity, extremely easy to get burnt out by that. So that's what I mean. It's like, in order to save yourself from being burnt out, that's why it's so important to give yourself the grace and to give yourself the humor and to see things from a different lens and not be going, this sucks all the time. Like,
Exactly.
Say it sucks, but say it in a different way, in a more humorous way, so that it doesn't take emotional toll on yourself, right?
It takes a lot of energy.
It takes a lot of energy. So give yourself the grace, give yourself a little bit of humor, to make it through, right? If you don't have the humor, then you'll never make it through. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, there's a lot of great advocates out there that they'll post on the social media regarding the CDB, and different advocacy changes that you want to see in their life, because the CDB, as we know, I mean, we talk a lot about this on the show, and we talk a lot about 222 also. That's going to be coming up just any moment here. So anyone watch the screen. Yeah, for me, that's just one thing that just for me, I just kind of
you'll be holding it up for another 30 seconds or so, Brent.
30 seconds, okay, because my arm will get kind of tired now. But I just have to, and that's just a me thing, right? It's just something that I always look at and say, well, that is weird.
I look at for me it's 444, Brent.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting that for you it's 222 and for me it's 444. So we're kind of connected that way, but by double we're doubles of each other.
Yeah, and I
there you go, 222.
There we go, 222.
Yeah.
And I always wait for that, especially if it's on the 22nd of the month. That's a bonus. I say that's an extra couple more twos. So I'm going, yay.
Well, you know what is interesting too is today is May the 5th. It's the 5th month and the 5th day.
Yeah.
And it's also 2025.
Yeah,
so it's actually 3 5s and 3 5s. That means like triple grace. Because 5 is the number of grace, so we're being triply blessed today.
I was thinking about that this morning. I'm thinking, wow, and I think when people look at that, they say, that's something very unique. That's very interesting about that person. And it's the intriguing part. I think it's like one of the attributes, personality-wise, that lets a person's, their Noah shine forward. I've always looked at advocacy in different lenses of on social media, like people that are advocating. I mean, they can be still suffering in legislative poverty themselves. So when they see people posting stuff, what they're doing is they're telling the government it's not okay to keep things as status quo. I mean, everybody's suffering across the country. I get it, especially when they're in legislative poverty in each province. And when people that are donors that used to help people, and now they're suffering in poverty. We got a huge problem in our society. I had a person that was actually helping me every so often, and now is in legislative poverty. And that's another thing. Like, I don't share that information out there. I found out recently the person had developed a few more disabilities in their life. That are now more pronounced and in their life, and they got into an accident on top of that. So now they added, like I said, a disability can happen to anybody, more and more in their life, and so person's situation has changed, and this person helped many people throughout our country. So I want to thank that person for everything that you've done for me over time. And everybody else in the disability community across our beautiful country.
You know what I'm going to do, Brent? I'm going to put you on ISO shot because we didn't do it. We didn't do it right today.
Oh, sure.
I've got you on. Oh, I have to move up the. the window a little bit. I'm doing this live. Oh,
Yes.
here we go. What? Oh, there you go. There's your. There. People are going, what are you doing, Neil? So there you are. You're full screen now. That's what we should have had at the beginning of the show. So I apologize.
And this is just a announcement. In recognition, I want to thank the person very much. You've helped a lot of people out in our beautiful country, and who are suffering under government-imposed legislative poverty. At one time, when I started my advocacy way back when, I heard the word legislative poverty. I didn't understand that, and I guess maybe that for me, I guess that was an ableist thing, right? I mean, I'll be honest. I thought that was ableist thing. Like, how can government ever talk about like legislative poverty? And then I started hearing politicians talk about it from the federal level in our country, and I thought, okay, so they're talking about legislative poverty. And then I started hearing local MPPs in Ontario, because they have members of provincial party. So I guess maybe that's what it stands for. Maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong. What MPP stands for. I learned from advocacy. And then there was MLAs in BC and other provinces like Alberta.
I think it's member of provincial parliament. I think that's
okay. I was close. Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Member of provincial parliament. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you got different levels of government. When you start hearing them talking about legislative poverty, then you know it's serious. You know that it's serious. Doesn't matter which political party that they come from. When they're not shy about talking about it. I mean, the former MP Mike Morrice for the Green Party in Kitchener, Ontario. I greatly miss his advocacy. Very unfortunate that Mike didn't get reelected. I know a lot of people are in sorrow right now across our disability community across the country, because Mike stood up very, very strongly. And I mean, amongst other ones too.
I would still like to get Mike on, actually, if he's available. I'd love to get him on to talk about, maybe his chance to connect, outside of politics a little bit, to have him come on again. I would love that.
Yeah, because Mike was, just so that anyone watching the podcast now, or I mean listening later or watching now live, Mike was one of the MPs who really pushed hard on the committee to basically get a lot of the regulations streamlined from the CDB. And it's very unfortunate that some of the people who decided to go against what Mike's accepted regulations were, they decided to go and do a 360 on them.
Yeah.
And make it more stringent for the CDB. Why? I don't understand. I still don't understand why a person would want to make it harder to qualify for to get the CDB. But that DTC, even doctors in BC have now put a comment out saying no, like streamline it.
Even the last time we did have Mike on, I can't remember the last time it was now. But it wasn't that long ago. We had him on, and he was talking about that the way that the CDB is now, he said it bears no resemblance to the suggestions that are they're not even suggestions, because they were put into the legislation. His suggestions were legislated to be part of the finished product of the CDB. And he says, how does that work, that my suggestions were legislated, they're part of the legislation now, but yet they're not reflected in what the government's actually doing now with putting all these roadblocks.
Yeah, and that's the part.
Doesn't make sense.
I was thinking about that last night. I went for a walk around our block here, and it's a beautiful area. And I was thinking exactly about what we're just saying right now. It didn't logically make sense how that's something that they accepted his recommendations, put in there, that's going to help people with disabilities across Canada to get them, at least lift them out of legislative poverty. And then the government decided, nah, you know what? We're just going to say, yes, Mike, thanks. We're going to implement this in, but no, you know what? We're going to take it away. We're not going to go with it. Like, why say that in the first place to him and to the disability community? Like, to us, it's like a gut punch. It's a slap in the face by the federal government go doing a 360. Like, what was it all about? I mean, did we all advocate this for no damn reason? Put our time and energy into it? I remember, Neil, like, when we started the Twitter space, like way back, and we would talk about how these discussions about the CDB and getting a temporary measure put in place, like a DERB. I mean, we pumped that thing and it was trending on Twitter. I mean, we actually, everyone got it actually trending on Twitter. And then the finance minister at the time said, oh, well, we can't do both. We can't pay for a DERB and do the CDB. It's one or the other. Well, it turned out that they didn't have a plan of doing either.
Yeah, I know.
So that was the terrible part. And so I think part of the situation of looking back at it, I mean, lessons learned of what could go better, what could go worse. I think that'd be a good storybook, really, part of the trend. But what I do want to see going forward, I want the federal government to really actively, like immediately, listen to doctors across Canada, especially there's doctors of BC are really pushing that narrative of saying, like, stop it already. You're going against the CRPD. Yeah. Okay. And the CRPD even said, the UN said.
And that's 15 years old now too, where it hasn't really progressed at all either.
No, and they're even telling the federal government, like, don't do this. Like, you know, you need to comply. And I think the government probably had mud in the face and probably thought, okay, how do we backpedal out of this? We screwed up. And one thing I've learned in life, before we sign off here, folks, if you screw up, just admit. It's not hard to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I messed up. I need to do better. Like you learn from your mistakes, right? As even advocacy, you learn from your mistakes. You know, and
again, going back to the whole book idea, the reason why my book ended up the way it is because I accepted the criticism. Like if I didn't accept the criticism of, like, that's not a very good story, no, it's not very exciting, it's not very different, it's too mundane, too similar, too samey. If I just ignored it and said, "Oh, I'll just put it out anyway," it wouldn't have been half the book it is today, or it might have not. It wouldn't have even been worth reading even a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to just accept constructive criticism. I mean, and that's how it makes the person grow within and say, okay, what can I do to make changes? How can I do better, or at least try to do better? And just accept that and work with it, because it just makes a person a better person. I had an employer one time who yelled at me as constructive criticism, and I could have walked away. I could have walked off. I could have just walked off the job. But no, you know what? I
have somebody at the door, Brent.
Okay. Yeah. And I said, okay. I said, you know, I learned better. I need to do better. But thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed today's show, and stay tuned to our next podcast.
Okay. Bye.
Take care.